is a war. It's happening now. It will decide the fate of humanity. The time to choose sides has come. We are the resistance. We are the INFOWAR.
Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. It is Tuesday, September 23rd, 2014, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here's what's coming up tonight.
Tonight.
You're seeing the beginnings of a sustained campaign, and strikes like this in the future can be expected.
The Obama administration attacks Syria without congressional approval. That's next on the INFOWARS Nightly News.
And the guys come over and we're like kind of like peer pressuring, like they were laughing at me. And I wasn't upset because they were making fun of me. I was upset because of what big giant piles of steaming crap they were.
Well, in a move that threatens to inflame the entire region, Washington launched airstrikes against ISIS targets in Syria last night. Now, ISIS fighters, training compounds, headquarters, and command and control facilities, storage facilities, a finance center, supply trucks, and armed vehicles were hit. Early reports indicate that at least 8 civilians, including 3 children, were killed during an aerial bombardment of the city of Raqqa. Now, whatever the necessity and justification of the campaign against ISIS, Obama's decision to once again ignore Congress just reinforces this precedent that has been set that the White House is going to go ahead and launch military action with no legal justification whatsoever, nor are they going to consult Congress. Now, shortly after reports of U.S. airstrikes on Syria emerged, Congressman Justin Amash summed up the feelings of some lawmakers as well as a lot of the citizens here in America, basically saying congressional leaders' failure to engage in a vigorous debate about the new conflict. It's absurd. He said it's irresponsible and immoral that instead of debating and voting on war, congressional leaders chose to recess Congress for nearly 2 months. But of course, when they do get back, they're going to blame Obama for not consulting them. But how is he going to consult them when they purposefully go back on vacation? Now, by once again snubbing Congress, Obama has brazenly violated the Constitution. Once again, it is an impeachable offense. Of course, we're probably not going to see anything about that. And even with that, the lefties were very quick to voice their support for Obama and trying to point out how launching this airstrike campaign was so much different than Bush. But AP reporter Josh Lederman deleted this tweet after a round of well-deserved mocking. He tweeted, "Involvement of 5 Arab nations in Syria airstrikes, a major foreign policy win for Obama, also helps him distinguish from Bush's Iraq war." And he was instantly criticized. One person said, 3 of the countries assisting in airstrikes tonight assisted in strikes under Bush, but don't let facts ruin a good lead. And another said, yes, Bush had 8 times as many countries allied and had congressional approval. These are 2 things Obama lacks. So, of course, it is typical spin. Now, the White House is saying that they have legal justification to attack ISIS under the same 2001 authorization that was given to strike those during the War on Terror. However, that law only covers those who were directly involved in the September 11, 2001 terror attacks, organizations, other persons, countries. So, of course, now we're hearing about this Al-Qaeda splinter group that, I mean, we've heard whispers of them in the past, but now, all of a sudden, today, we're hearing that they pose an imminent threat on the United States, which means somewhere within the next few weeks, we should have been seeing some sort of attack. Now, the Russian Foreign Ministry said any strikes by U.S. and its allies on Syrian territory require Syria's consent. And they added that initiators of unilateral, forceful scenarios should bear all the international responsibility for their consequences. In a September 22nd telephone conversation with UN Secretary General, Putin said that attempts to attain one's own geopolitical aims by violating the sovereignty of countries in the region merely fuel tensions and destabilize the situation further. Not to mention that these airstrike campaigns are going to only further bolster support for anti-American jihadi groups. Now, earlier on Tuesday, a spokesman for the Syrian Foreign Ministry reported that the U.S. had given them advanced warning that they were going to strike, what certain positions they were going to strike against Islamic State. Now, this is very strange because on Sunday, UN Ambassador Samantha Power told Chuck Todd on NBC that the real purpose of the fight against ISIS would be to overthrow al-Assad and the Syrian government. So it kind of goes against them saying, hey, we're warning you now, we're about to strike these groups. Power said the moderate Free Syrian Army will receive an infusion of support in its battle against both ISIS and the Syrian government. Of course, this is an attempt to keep this illusion alive that there's actually a difference between al-Nusra and ISIS and the FSA, when in fact these are all creations of the West and British and Israeli intelligence, all a means to get into Syria and oust Assad, destabilize the region. Now, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the U.S.-led effort involved coordination with the Free Syrian Army, which is also the group who is just so happens to be the lucky recipient of all of those American weapons. Now, this is why we know it is pure spin when we see them reporting that Assad approves of the airstrikes. So far, not only did Syrian dictator Bashar Assad refrain from lashing out against the American-led airstrikes, they're saying he seemingly gave a coded thumbs up. Syria's official media says that the country's leaders got advanced warning from U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry of the U.S. airstrikes. But this is in complete contrast to spokesman Jen Psaki. She vehemently denied this yesterday. I mean, made a point of denying it, saying, we warned Syria not to engage U.S. aircraft. We did not request the regime's permission. We did not coordinate our actions with the Syrian government. We did not provide advance notification to the Syrians at a military level or give any indication of our timing on specific targets. Secretary Kerry did not send a letter to the Syrian regime. So what is it? Did they warn them? Did they not warn them? Did Assad and their state-run media put that message out to save face, to kind of give the idea that he's got his country under control and that he knew the West was going to be targeting Islamic State within his borders? Just a year ago, Obama officials were insisting that we had to strike the Assad regime. It was imperative. And now, all of a sudden, they're bombing Assad's enemies and giving him the heads up as to where they're going to be striking. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but either way, we know that this administration doesn't ask for permission, and they don't really care if Assad and his regime are giving permission. Now they haven't even gotten permission from the UN, not from Congress. And of course, this airstrike in Syria marks the 7th country that the Peace Prize president has dropped bombs on.
Your point about ISIL adapting to the airstrikes is a good one. And we have seen evidence that they're already doing that. We've seen that now as a result of the air campaign thus far in Iraq. There are other ways to deliver precise munitions.
That was a top general saying that ISIL has already adapted to the airstrikes by the U.S. and others. The Obama administration has led the way in attacking the terrorist group within Syria, but without Syrian President Assad's blessing. We've seen reports that Syrian civilians have died in these attacks, but top brass at the Pentagon have pledged to continue on with the attacks even if they had to change their methods.
You're seeing the beginnings of a sustained campaign, and strikes like this in the future can be expected.
So beyond ISIL, if these attacks continue, what will be the response of the Syrian military? And how will the U.S. react to that? And it's not as simple as everything the U.S. does is bad and everything Assad does is good. Assad isn't the greatest guy. But Assad isn't the one giving aid to al-Qaeda rebels who break off and form ISIS. So it seems to me to be a problem-action solution that all benefits the military-industrial complex. You can find more reports at INFOWARS.com.
So with so much confusion surrounding just who it is we are attacking in the region, it's constantly changing. ISIS, ISIL, it's the shell game. Now an al-Qaeda splinter group has risen from the ashes. The Pentagon has announced that this is just the beginning. So we feel like it's really important we should know just who we're dealing with over there. Now, joining me in studio is Joe Biggs. Joe, you've dealt with campaigns like this before. Who is this seemingly new group?
Well, right now there is a battle going on between two terrorist groups. You have Al-Qaeda, and then you have the new ISIS group as well. Now, here's al-Zarqawi. Al-Zarqawi is a leader of Al-Qaeda. He actually asked ISIS to come join arms and pick up with them. But Baghdadi is the group of ISIS, the leader of that group. He thinks that he is a direct descendant of Muhammad, and he is the one chosen to lead this caliphate, this new Islamic state to take over the globe, basically. So right now there's this huge battle going on in between the ranks. They have been outlawed by or disowned by the Al-Qaeda group. So basically what al-Zarqawi wanted was for Baghdadi to come in and kind of help him out and do a lot of these bombings, hit Western targets for him. He's not going to do it, so they dropped him. So now you have the new guy for Khorasan. This is al-Fadili. He is the new group leader for them. And this is a small terrorist group, like you said, about 50, 60 men right now at the moment, but they are what they call core Al-Qaeda members. They've been around for a long time. They're very intelligent and very skilled in urban combat. So this guy is from Iran. He is from the Khorasan area. Khorasan is comprised of a number of countries. It's Afghanistan, Iran, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. It is an ancient Islamic time, back around the prehistoric ages. These guys in a prophecy are supposed to rise up out of Khorasan with black banners like this, the one that you see bin Laden having, rise out and then instill this Islamic state worldwide. So they feel like they're the rightful heirs to take over and run this, but you have Baghdadi as well saying, no, this is what my group is going to do. So this bickering is going on back and forth, but what they've done now, they picked up this new group out of Yemen that specializes in non-metallic explosives. We all know the underwear bomber, the shoe bomber, things like that. They have failed tremendously at making these things work, but they think that they're going to bring these guys in and somehow be successful in coming into America and hitting Western targets in America and in Europe. Well, the interesting thing, though, is the area that they've decided to operate out of is Aleppo, right up here. The reason they picked that spot, the Khorasan, is because you have ISIS here in Raqqa, mainly in Syria. That's where they're running a lot of their operations for. Well, what ISIS is doing is they want to help topple the Assad regime. Khorasan doesn't care about that whatsoever. They're using this as, from a strategic standpoint, to bring in, when the Westerners come in from America, from Europe, places like that, they have to come in through here, come in, and then try to meet up with ISIS. So they're trying to cut them off, pick up Western fighters as they come in that have the passports, able to come back into America so they can try and use these non-metallic explosive devices on planes, in American cities, things like that. So there's a lot going on with that right now.
So the fact that they are trying to actively recruit people before they make their way over to the territory that ISIS is holding, is this potentially the terror threat that the Obama administration is citing, the imminent threat to the United States? Well,
yeah, I believe they're scared that there's a chance that someone could have access to come back into the States, because they said today on the news a few times that they know that some of these ISIS fighters and other terrorists have come back into the U.S. So that's the threat they're talking about. They're afraid that you're going to get some of these non-metallic materials passing through security again and having some other kind of incident. But so far, these guys have tried it 3 times. They've been unsuccessful thus far. But what's going on right now, the reason there's a battle between these two guys, Al-Qaeda is trying to make a step back up, because we know that ISIS is now the largest funded terror group. You know, they're the name in the news every day. Al-Qaeda kind of feels like they're being left out, I feel. So they're trying to bring in some new blood, get these Khorasan guys to come in, see if they can help fire up and bring Al-Qaeda back in the picture. So another reason why they were in the final stages of almost having this imminent attack somewhere in America, because what they feel like, I believe, is that if they strike first, they're going to now deter people from wanting to go join ISIS, because they're going to say, wow, Al-Qaeda, Khorasan, these are the guys really fighting in the jihad. We want to go with them. So like I said, it's this battle between Al-Qaeda, ISIS, but we all funded them all. It's this round robin of our money somewhere in all of this at all times.
Right, explain that a little bit. I mean, we've got this ancient battle going on, but we've basically supported and trained these groups, and then they've sort of broken off. Because I hear a lot of people kind of confused about, well, how can they